Last week, Toyota was kind enough to fly me out to Napa, California and Sonoma Raceway to get behind the wheel of some of their latest 2026 GR product lineup, including the 2026 GR Corolla, GR 86, and GR Supra final editions. Now this video is going to focus on the GR Corolla specifically and many of the enhancements and improvements that they've made since the GR Corolla's introduction for 2023 here in the US market, including a unique opportunity to get behind the wheel of a 2023, 2024 with some 2025 enhancements, and a 2026 model year GR Corolla back-to-back in an attempt to feel some of the continuous enhancements and improvements that they made to the GR Corolla over the last several model years. So starting out with what's new for the 2026 GR Corolla. Well, first of all, they're moving to a 2-trim or 2-grade strategy within their lineup. So there's no longer 3 different trims to choose from. They're now going down to 2. You have the GR Corolla Standard and the GR Corolla Premium Plus. Now with this change, they're actually making a handful of features that were formerly optional as standard across every single GR Corolla, including the bulge vented hood, the Brin knob leather and suede seats with gray stitching standard, and the red stitching is still part of the Premium Plus trim, wireless device charging, dual zone automatic climate control, and the Pilot Sport 5 summer tires are now standard equipment to replace the Pilot Sport 4s. So this is just a newer version of that particular tire with some updated next generation technology. Now a couple items to note specific to this 2-trim strategy is that there are going to be a handful of features that are now only found on the top Premium Plus that were formerly either on the Premium or optional on the Core of the past few years. So starting out, the sub radiator that they introduced for 2025 that was formerly optional on Premium, standard on Premium Plus, is no longer optional on the lesser trims. So you do have to go up to a fully loaded Premium Plus for that. Heated seats and heated steering wheel are now only found on the top Premium Plus, so you cannot get them at all on the standard GR Corolla, either as standard or as an optional package. And finally, the JBL Premium Audio System, once again, only found on Premium Plus, no longer available on the lesser trim levels. Now, in terms of some of the mechanical improvements to the vehicle for 2026, they've added 46.5 feet of structural adhesives to the body to help stiffen up the overall chassis and the rigidity of the platform over that of the enhancements that they made over the last couple model years. And in addition to this, they've also added a secondary intake duct just below the front grille area to provide additional cool air to the intake system to help keep intake air temperatures under control, specifically over prolonged lapping, track periods, or just spirited driving in general. Now outside of this, the GR Corolla is going to be the same as the 2025 with all of the previous enhancements that have been done to this chassis and platform, which are going to be fairly substantial. Now some of these things include rigidity improvements to the suspension via thicker and differently shaped bolt heads, improved aerodynamics on the front bumper with different plastic inserts to help guide air around the outside of the vehicle, improved grounding of the 12-volt battery, revised rear suspension geometry, progressive rear spring rates with helper springs inside of the damper assembly itself, specifically to help with rebound, and revised dry modes and ECU tuning to provide less understeer and different dynamics, specifically with the track modes and some of the other dry modes outside of normal, just to give the vehicle a more balanced neutral feel instead of understeering tendencies, which was formerly locked into 50-50 power split front and rear for the track mode in the earlier model years, and then they've revised it for 2025 and onwards with a more dynamic programming to allow 60-40 up to I think 30-70 in the rear, and I did get to experience that with some of the later model years that I got to drive on the track. Now moving on to how the 2026 GR Corolla drove over that of the previous model years, well, Toyota was kind enough to provide a 2023, a 2024 with some of the 2025 suspension enhancements, and a 2026 GR Corolla stock from the factory to test drive back-to-back on Sonoma Raceway. This was a very unique opportunity. I'm glad they actually set up and provided this opportunity for us media, because if you care about how the vehicle changes year over year, then it's very difficult to get inside of one vehicle one year, get into the next model year, and try to feel and compare these two vehicles back to back. So the fact that we had all 3 vehicles that we got directly into one, into the next one, and then finally into the last one was a great opportunity. And here are some of my first impressions and thoughts after getting behind the wheel of all 3 of these vehicles. So starting out with the 2023 GR Corolla, which of course is the one without any of the additional enhancements or improvements over the last couple years. And my first impression of this particular vehicle was the fact that it had understeer tendencies when you really started to push it towards the limit of the tires and the ultimate grip of the vehicle. Now I think some of this had to do with the 50-50 front and rear bias for the track mode specifically. Of course, some of the later model years, including 2025 and 2026, have a more dynamic track drive mode, which allows the car to allocate up to 60% front, 40% rear, and then I think 30% front and up to 70% in the rear in the track mode specifically. And then finally, the suspension of the vehicle in general just felt the most unsettled and the most not planted or secure while driving around and really pushing it towards its limit. Now moving on to the 2024 Circuit Edition with some of the 2025 enhancements. This one felt immediately better behind the wheel. It's had a lot of the rigidity in terms of the bolts and some of the undercarriage and some of the suspension tweaks. So this really did help, and I think the progressive rear springs with some of the damper assist for the rebound also help make it feel a little bit more settled on the track when you're really starting to push it. But this one didn't have any of the power enhancements or the power improvements that the 2025s and the 2026s saw. So it still had the 300 horsepower and the 273 pound-feet of torque rather than the 295 that the newer models got. And finally, moving on to the 2026 GR Corolla, this by far was the most confidence-inspiring one out of all three of these vehicles, but I do want to put a disclaimer very quickly, and that this particular one didn't even have quite 500 miles on the odometer, so it really hadn't been fully broken in yet, and I think that helps just overall with a vehicle's performance. New brakes, new tires, new bushings, all of that obviously is going to be brand new, so it should feel the best out of the box. But total grip felt better. I think the Pilot Sport 5 summer tires are a noticeable enhancement and improvement by itself. Of course, the body rigidity felt much better than that of the previous two vehicles due to all of the other bolt and suspension geometry changes on top of the new structural adhesive that they added for 2026. Now, I wasn't able to get an exact percentage stiffness improvement over that of the other vehicles with all of the structural adhesive that they added, but that was going to be the case that I felt behind the wheel just felt the most rigid, it felt more balanced. And finally, one of the biggest attributes that immediately I noticed upon flooring the vehicle was a newly standard augmented sound being pumped into the cabin via the audio system. That this was not a feature mentioned on some of the press materials, but it is going to be an option in the infotainment system. And I think out of the box it's set on medium, but I preferred it on low or off entirely because it just gives it a little bit of a fake noise coming in the cabin on top of the vehicles that of the past that didn't even have that feature. So that is going to be something else that I really noticed. But overall, the track drive mode really made a difference in terms of how the vehicle didn't have nearly as much understeer tendency. The back end would start to rotate just a little bit under braking, especially over the blind crest moving down into the left downhill portion. And all in all, it just really was a much better experience. I preferred driving the 2026, obviously, for all of these reasons above over that of especially the 2023, and a little bit more so than that of the 2024 and 2025s. Now, in addition to this, we also got to drive the GR Corolla on a gravel course where really we're just trying to get the back end to rotate, drift it a little bit sideways, and test out the all-wheel drive performance and the gravel drive mode that that vehicle does come standard with. Now, this was a very satisfying experience, not only to go straight from a track drive into a gravel or off-road drive with the exact same or a very similar GR Corolla, but who in their right mind ever gets to drift a vehicle on gravel or very slick conditions such as this one? So it really was a great opportunity to experience some of the all-wheel drive, chassis balance, as well as just getting to enjoy drifting a vehicle on a safe, closed course. So that was a great opportunity, and overall, the GR Corolla is extremely capable, whether or not you want to do rallycross or you want to take it on a paved track circuit. Now, finally, we were able to take a ride with Weston Workman, who you might know from the MX-5 Cup Series or the TC Car Series. We were able to take the GR Corolla on a ride-along around Sonoma Raceway and really push the race-oriented version of this vehicle. I had a shitty grin on my face the entire time, and that was one of the best experiences of this event by far. And it's really insane to feel the braking performance from the upgraded brakes, the tires and the slicks that they put on this thing, and just the overall stiffness and rigidity from the full roll cage and stuff like that. It's obviously a little bit lighter than that of the stock production car. Doesn't make really too much power difference between them, but just all of the race car improvements and handling changes really do set this car apart, and it was just awesome to experience that firsthand. That could be fun to do all day. Oh, yeah. Oh, man. Then you get the drone flying around and all that fun stuff.
I was wondering what that sound was when I saw the drone.
Yeah. Oh, man. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir.
All right, so we are just leaving Sonoma Raceway after a long day of content creation and checking out a bunch of 2026 Toyota products. And I have to say, this was an absolute blast. And somehow, some way, I was blessed enough to drive a 2026 Corolla GR Premium Plus, likely the same car I drove earlier today, back to the hotel, enjoy some of these twisty, windy roads of the Napa Valley area of California, just outside San Francisco. I guess this is a great opportunity to give you guys my final thoughts on the GR Corolla and the enhancements that they have made for 2026. Needless to say, I think that the enhancements for 2026 are certainly making this car even better than it already was for especially 2024 and 2025. Every single year with this car, they have done something to the chassis, the platform, the vehicle to make it just perform continuously better and improve upon it, which is the Japanese way and the mentality. And they've even retrofitted prior model years of customers' cars back in Japan with some of these new bolt-on upgrades, which is absolutely awesome. And I'm very curious to know how much different the Pilot Sport 5s are from the Pilot Sport 4 tires. And I did talk to the chief engineer of this vehicle, and they stated that it is a Michelin and Toyota specific compound to this vehicle. So it has been a team effort in that regard, but it's not altered too much from the stock compound that Michelin, of course, gives every Pilot Sport 5 summer performance tire, which are going to be track capable, which we obviously had earlier on in this video. Absolute blast. And yeah, this vehicle, this car is something special. And I think Toyota is doing the right thing, consolidating the offerings and the trim structure for 2026 being just a 2-grade vehicle. Although I do want to 100% confirm that heated seats and heated steering wheel are going to be standard, because living in the Midwest, that's obviously something that I would think is a must-have feature if you're buying an all-wheel drive vehicle like this, want to take it in the snow, winter, icy conditions, and live with it on a daily basis. Among drifting it and track driving it whenever you feel so inclined to do so. This vehicle is absolutely special, and I don't know how much more there is to say about it. It is such a cool product, such a unique product in the world of SUVs from not only Toyota but other manufacturers out there. And ultimately, I cannot recommend the 6-speed manual enough over the automatic, which is fine. Drove it on the track, performed great. Drove it as a press vehicle last year, or earlier this year actually, and it's fine. I love the automatic. It's still a very potent, performance-oriented vehicle. However, the 6-speed manual is so engaging, using the rev match downshift function, and just, oh my gosh. and then hearing the noises come from the engine and the turbo, oh, it is so, so special. So I think that's ultimately where I'm going to leave this video on the GR Corolla. Is this vehicle is awesome. The changes and enhancements they made for 2026, including the track drive mode and the electronic stability control and all of the torque vectoring front to back, all of those help this vehicle on track. The Pilot Sport 5 tires help. The body rigidity enhancements via the adhesives, the bolts from the previous model years, the spring rate going from a fixed spring rate to a progressive spring rate, and then putting in the helper springs inside of the dampers for rebound. All of this is going to make the GR Corolla even better than it was just 3 model years ago. And overall, it's a car that I would absolutely own and recommend and be willing to live with on a daily basis. So you guys will have to let me know your thoughts and opinions on this down in the comment section below. Do you agree, disagree? Can you wait for the 2026s to come out? These should be available later this calendar year at your local dealership in 2 grades, as I mentioned, just the regular and the Premium Plus. And yeah, I want to give a huge thanks to Toyota for inviting me out to Sonoma Raceway here in California and getting to experience some of these vehicles in basically all different conditions. I mean, heck, who gets to drive and drift the GR Corolla on gravel and the track literally just an hour or 2 apart and experience this all-wheel drive system and what it is capable of? Very few people, and I'm glad to be one of them. So, as always, I appreciate continued support here on the channel. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and with all that being said, I hope to see you guys in the next one.